Thank you, Maya. As Maya just said, I'll be talking about what we can learn about the formation of merging binary black holes from the merger rate that we observe. So luckily for me, a lot of the previous talks already introduced a lot of the things that I'm talking about. So we've already seen this plot earlier today. This is the recently published LVK GWTC4 result for the merger rate of binary black holes as a function of redshift. And what I want the takeaway for this slide to be is that there's conventionally two methods of getting this merger rate from the observations. There's parametric and non-parametric methods. The parametric methods assume some functional form, some structure that the merger rate has to conform to. So this is shown by the power law in blue. And it's called parametric because you're fitting to the parameters of this model. In contrast, there's non-parametric methods, which don't assume some underlying structure for the merger rate. And this is the orange line in this plot, which was computed using splines. And so I, in this project, am focusing on non-parametric curves because they're data-driven, and I'm trying to see what is the data telling us about the formation of these black holes. This was introduced in the last two talks, so thank you to those speakers. If we want to attach physical meaning to the curves that I showed on the last slide, we need to have a physical interpretation of what's going on. So we start with stars forming. So there's some progenitor formation rate that the merger rate is related to. This could be the star formation rate or some modified form of that, taking into account metallicity. And then these stars aren't immediately forming and merging as black holes. There's some time delay between the event of formation and the merger. So in mathematical terms, it's given by this equation. So we have the rate of mergers is equal to the rate of formation, but convolved with a bunch of different possibilities for the time delay. In a visual form, this is showing a formation rate in black. And so some stars will form, here, and then a subset of those are going to merge a little later after their formation, but then some of those might merge later, and another subset of those might merge even later. And then so that's how you get the merger rate in purple. These time delays are typically modeled as a power law. So the relevant parameter here is the power law index alpha. And this plot here is showing different time delay distributions. This is related to the separation of the black hole. So if something has, or if two black holes have a wider separation, they take longer to merge, so they have a longer time delay. Or if they're closer together, then they don't take as long, and they have a shorter time delay. And for example, the common envelope evolutionary channel is very efficient at shrinking orbits. So there's a preference for lower time delays than longer time delays. So its index is -1, making it quite steep. On the other hand, you have stable mass transfer in this plot, which is not as efficient at bringing black holes together. So there's a shallower time delay distribution in comparison to the common envelope channel. And the index of this is -0.35. So I want to take advantage of the non-parametric data that I was telling you about before, which doesn't necessarily have physics baked into it. And in combination with a simple model for the time delay distribution, which there are theoretical predictions for, I want to learn about the structure of the formation rate. But looking at this equation as it is, it's difficult to rearrange that for the formation rate. And I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details of this, but if you remember from your university math courses, convolution theorems, and Fourier transforms and all of that, you can rearrange this easily in the frequency domain. So we have our merger rate data, and we have our assumption for the time delay, and we can calculate what the formation rate curves would be from this. However, when we're combining a data set that is totally data-driven and doesn't have physics baked into it or physical assumptions, and then we combine it with a model that does have physical assumptions and is physically motivated, we get some incompatibilities or inconsistencies. So the black line is an example of a real 04 data point or a data curve. And of course, there's thousands of curves that are able to represent the data. This is one example. If I take this black line, I assume some time delay distribution. So I pick an alpha, like maybe I pick -1 for common envelope evolution. I get the purple formation rate line when I do the calculation I showed on the last slide. But what should strike you about this is that the formation rate goes negative at some point in the universe's history, and that's not physical. What's happening is you need to have the formation rate up here to explain the structure in the merger rate here. But because we know that some of those stars that form are going to have longer time delays, we know that there's a budget of mergers that even though they form here, they're going to happen way later into the future. And so the red line is showing the required mergers based off of this formation rate. And we can see that this becomes larger than what the data is actually saying. So the merger rate is dropping too much to be consistent with this particular time delay that I chose for this example. And then the universe needs to get rid of stars in order to get rid of those stars that they know formed but need to merge into the future. So like I said, this is just one example of the GWTC4 data. But I can run this analysis on the whole data set to get constraints on the time delay distributions that are physically consistent with the data by just looking at what time delay index does this formation rate go negative, and then I know that those time delays are too shallow of an index. So this is the result I get from doing this. This is a cumulative distribution of the maximum possible alpha that is physically permitted. So if a curve is consistent here, or if it's shown in this plot here, it means that it could have a time delay that is anything less than this, but it can't have a time delay that is on this side. And so with an index of -0.5, pretty much all of the curves were inconsistent with this. The data would not allow there to be a time delay shallower than that. And if you remember from a plot that I showed earlier, the stable mass transfer channel had an index of -0.35, so it's over here more. The common envelope channel, if you remember, has a predicted index of -1. And this is a very efficient way of bringing black holes together, but about 20% of the data curves require something that's even more efficient at bringing black holes together, and it requires an even steeper time delay. Our original goal was to see, the structure of the formation rate of objects that become binary black hole mergers. So that's what I'm showing here. This is assuming the common envelope value of -1. The overplotted dotted line is a rescaled analytic form for the star formation rate. And so just judging by eye at higher redshifts, the shape and structure is kind of similar, but then in the more local universe, the rate of formation of things that are going to become black holes that are merging decreases more steeply than the formation rate of all stars. So I'll leave my conclusion slide up, but just quickly, because I'm a PhD student, a lot of people here might not know me or are maybe not familiar with my work, so I just want to promote this paper that was put on the archive last week with Maya and Lika and Will Farr, because I know a lot of people in this room are also interested in the Gaia population. So we showed that the mass distribution of the Gaia neutron stars is statistically very similar to the mass distribution of the recycle component in galactic double neutron stars. So check that paper out and talk to me in the coffee break if you're interested in any of this. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Tom Macaron. The inversion that you're doing, it's basically the same math as what you use in time series analysis to find a transfer function between two different energy bands if you think one is a reprocessed version of the other one. And in that domain, what people have found is that even though it looks like it's a nice analytic formula or a nice algorithm, it doesn't actually work because small errors in the data kind of blow up when you do the division and inversion. Is there a reason why you don't have that problem with what you're doing?
So that is a problem that I glossed over. But there are methods, like from signal processing and so on, that reduces the impact of those noise amplifications. So in my actual code, it's more complicated than just this final equation, but I am accounting for that in all of the plots that I'm showing.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you go back to thank you for the talk. Can you go back to the cumulative distribution plot? Yeah, I think maybe I misunderstand the subtitle. When you say 99% of the merger data are incompatible, do you mean like taken one by one, you can take that this particular BBH is not compatible with the alpha point of minus 0.5 and 99% of the times, or is a population basement?
It's a population-based.
Okay,
so in the data set, there's thousands of merger rate curves that could be consistent with the data. And I found that for all of them, they all required something steeper than negative 0.5.
Do you have to assume anything about the distribution of the initial semi-major axis? Because like they could have been formed like closer or farther, common envelope aside. Do you have to assume anything on that? And those are the results.
Maybe I don't understand your question. We can talk more about it after, but I think that's baked into this index.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess that would be more like trying to connect that back to the formation channel that would produce a time delay with that distribution.
Vicky?
Hi, Vicky Calogera. So I may have missed it, but where the association of the stable mass transfer with minus 0.3 or 0.35 come from? And it sounds like a very secure
Yeah, so this is from a paper by Lika and Maya. So I'm just taking this plot here to show what their predictions were for those channels. So you should ask them more about that.
Okay, all right. And then my question then about your work. How do you think, you talked about how non-parametric, is powerful, etc. How do you think the strong assumption that the time delay distribution is actually a power law influence the conclusion? Have you thought about it, or have you done any experiments?
So I haven't done any experiments, but of course that is something I'm considering. One of the assumptions of this method or this model is that it's a power law for the time delay distribution. So these results are dependent on using that model, but I mean, you could use this method assuming some other form for the time delay distribution.
I think Kareem was next.
Thanks, Kareem Al-Badri. So I was just wondering, is your interpretation of this that we can rule out models with alpha beyond outside the bounds, or do you think this is an artifact of the wiggles that go into these major rate curves?
That's a really good question. My personal opinion is that this tells us about the non-parametric data curves that are coming out of the analysis. So it could be the case that this is constraining of the time delay models, but it also could be the case that we need to account for some more things when we are looking at the merger rates that come out of the data analysis.
Thanks.
Martina?
Yes, thank you. So I actually have many questions, but I guess I have to pick some. So maybe this is putting Salvo's question in a bit different way, but I think you need to assume a minimum time delay to do this calculation, right?
Yes.
So something is baked in here. When you add this interpretation in the context of stable mass transfer versus common envelope, they also find in the models on which you base this statement, they also find that different minimum time delay. And those things are somewhat degenerate, so I think that this statement is a bit more tricky here.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good point. For this analysis, I did just assume a minimum time delay of 10 million years. So that is something, if you're going to interpret something from this, you need to account for that.
For the stable mass transfer case, they were finding much longer delays. And also the flat index, if I remember correctly, it comes from taking the median over all the delay time distributions that were drawn from actual population models, which does not represent any of the models accurately. So that's also something that's...
I agree. If you want to interpret physics out of this result, it's tricky and you need to do more considerations than I put in this 10-minute talk.
Right.
But, yeah.
Thank you for this talk.
Okay, can the next speaker come and set up? And then maybe we can take a very quick question from Lika
Yeah,
while that's happening.
if people have actual questions, I just wanted to, because multiple people brought this up now, but indeed, what Maya and I did in that paper by showing indeed all those different population models, which was not intended as this is the truth for the delay time distribution of stable mass transfer in common envelopes. If you look at that plot in there, it doesn't hide that a power law is obviously a kind of shitty fit, but that's not the point. Was more to do kind of a proof of concept, and what Aryanna is doing as well is really interesting, saying like, what if you take this with some minimum delay time and some power law, which is the simplest thing we can do right now, what does it look like? But indeed, in real life, you see many of those lines actually go up and down. They're mass dependent, they're metallicity dependent. It's probably more complex than a power law.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. This is a proof of concept, so I'll be happy to talk throughout the rest of this conference on ways to actually make this more physically relevant.
Okay, let's thank Aryanna again.